Welcome to Rejected Religion Spotlight. I'm Stephanie Shea. My guest today is Mike Fiorito. Mike was a guest last year on my Patreon, where we discussed his previous book, and I have it right here, UFO Symphonic, Journeys into Sound. And today Mike returns to discuss his new work. I have it here as well. Innerspace of Outerspace, Exploring Other Worlds Through Music. Welcome back, Mike.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. It's always good to talk to you, and it's always a good conversation. So I really appreciate being here.
I'm so happy to talk with you about your book, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading it over the past couple of weeks. And thank you again for sending me a copy. I'm really hoping that I'm going to put it up here again so people can see it. There it is. And yes, I really hope that people will read this because you have a knack of talking about really deep esoteric stuff, but then making it so accessible because you're talking about music, and people can really, identify with music so easily, I think. And that makes the esoteric part of the conversation also more tangible for people, I think. Okay, so
well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. That means a lot because I do try to. I've written about music and say technical things, and what I try to do is strip out the nomenclature and just get to the heart of it. So that's great. And whenever the bell rings and someone says, "Yes, I got it,"
good.
I feel good.
Good. Okay, so reading the little blurb from the back cover, the Innerspace of Outerspace explores music as a form of magic, a portal that dissolves ordinary reality and opens onto myth, mystery, and transformation. So this book is looking at the esoteric, the metaphysical, and also the contact, the UFO, or what is it called now?
UAP.
UAP. Yeah. Sorry, I was getting my letters.
I'm still a UFO guy, though.
Okay, well, let's just say UFO. Anyway, these contact aspects of music, and it explores these through tarot archetypes, which I thought was wonderfully interesting, as well as your personal experiences and experiences of others. So, what I liked about the book is that it focuses on the idea that music isn't just entertainment; it is much, much deeper than that. And it can also perhaps even be called like a technology and how it can access our consciousness, or maybe it's even a part of our consciousness. Who knows? It's you get into it in the book. We can talk a little bit more about it today. So I'd like to start with the wonderful story that you talk about, the anecdote about Bobby McFerrin and his famous demonstration where he used his body as a visual bridge to prove that the pentatonic scale is an innate human software, as it were. Could you talk more about this?
Sure. Thank you. And that's Barbara Fisher. So I should just say that I met Barbara Fisher through, I don't know if you know Stephanie, Joshua Cutchin.
Not personally, but I've read many of his articles and heard a lot of people talking about him. Yes.
Yeah. So Josh has become a good friend. He wrote a book called Ecology of Souls, and he's written since a number of books. And I know that Barbara was working with him. So Barbara had made mention of her interest in music. So she's a musician. So I had written to her, and then we began corresponding. And at some point when I was writing this book, I said, would you like to write the foreword to this book? Because I feel like there's a lot of we share a lot of common interests, and I just think you'd be perfect for it. And by the way, she's a great writer too. So yeah, she wrote the foreword to the book, and she makes reference to that Bobby McFerrin scene where basically he's describing without anyone having training, he's sort of moving around the stage, and then in octaves, and I should say in thirds. anticipating, letting the audience then provide. If I go ah ah ah, and they kind of respond, and it's really interesting. And I know that. So it's interesting, the word hardwired for pentatonic. I kind of feel. So that's a big, deep discussion. You can get a PhD in that on that subject. Is it hardwired? I would say that there's the pentatonic has this kind of familiar quality. It's easy. I think that's more of what it is. It's universally pleasing, which is how could that be, right? But there's something logical to the pentatonic scale, logical and easy. Say, for example, I was thinking of this, that what is there a favorite color among human beings? And lo and behold, there is blue, perhaps because of the blue of the sky.
Yeah.
There's something familiar. Why do people like sweet things? Why do people everywhere like sweet things? There's just something that we gravitate towards. When you really look at the music history, yes, the pentatonic scale is shared, but music is always different everywhere. So, for instance, in Asian countries, so in China, there has always been emphasis on timbre. So, coming out of China, then going, China had great influence on the music of India. And what I mean by timbre is, if you listen to like Sufi singing or a lot of color, a lot of coloring of African music tends to have more rhythmic aspect to it. Of course, these aren't absolute and only, and these are just sort of generalizations, but I think they're generally true. Greek music tended to be string, lyre focused. European music has tended to be polyphonic and kind of vertical, in the sense that you stack voices. So, for instance, in Bach's music or Palestrina, it's the stacking of, Europeans love to sort of stack, show architecture of music. These are all, I think they're generalizations, but I do think that they're generally true. So while there is this something that makes sense musically, you also have, in Arabic scales, you have semitones. So you hear, there's little, the notes between semitones. I'm interested in all of it. And, I go and listen to music that could drive some people crazy. I'll talk about Pauline Oliveras. I went to a recent show on Saturday, and it was a show of Pauline Oliveras' music, and it was just wonderful, but not for everyone. But I would like to talk a little bit, too, about music as, in some cultures, music is associated with healing. Like doctors, there are healers who use music, and it's part of the practice. It's not separated from. I've read, there are actually hospitals now in the West where you have sound healers. You have musicians that come in to play for people in the hospital, for sick people. And there's something magical that happens, for sure. I even read this one instance where this guy went in for, I think, a cancer. He went into to do surgery for exploratory cancer. They thought he had maybe pancreatic cancer, but he went into, what do they call it, anaphylactic shock? And I think there was something in some chemical in his bloodstream that triggered this whole thing, and his blood pressure dropped. Basically, all his vitals were dropping. And his wife, at this point, they were the staff. They were all dejected and kind of looking at each other. And his wife asked the doctor if she could put iPods in his ear. So the doctor said, "You can, for 30 minutes only." And she played Saint Matthew Passion. and she put an iPod in her ear and an iPod in his ear. And this was a person who is declining, and basically they've accepted the fact that he's not going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And his vitals started to lift, and his vitals basically stabilized. Amazing. And I've read this more than once, so this is not a rare and an unusual occurrence. But music has that. It goes deep inside in the brain. It goes very deep inside the brain and the body. I mean, even people who can't hear listen to music, can listen to music, can feel the vibrations. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, Pauline Oliveros at one point, so I should just say that Pauline was a musician, composer, philosopher, thinker, and she would use music as part of, say, ritual or prayer, and I would say ways to trigger active imagination as well. Mm-hmm. So she was using music very actively. Oh, I should say that I did go to see her. By the way, I go to see her performance, and first of all, if you like avant-garde music, do you like avant-garde music?
I do.
Okay. I do realize it's not for everyone.
Right.
And I went to see her show, and parts of it were really funny because it was so crazy. It was so absolutely crazy. And I'm giggling my pants off, and that's not as a mockery. That's as a participatory. Yeah. So I'm participating. I'm feeling joy from this music that's challenging. It's can you even define it as music? Sometimes it's sound. It's even gibberish. There was a point where each of them had rocks that they were moving along a mic'd platform, and it sounded like scratching, but they were doing it in such a way that it was like chamber music. And God, it was so interesting and funny, but I was laughing, People are sitting there stock still and super serious. I don't know. I've gone up to musicians afterward and said, that was just wonderful. And I was really laughing hard. And they said, yeah, we were too. So it's not I think that's just part of the joy.
I think it speaks to something, as you said, it's a much deeper thing. So it seems to suggest to me that there's some kind of biological blueprint happening here that, like you said, even people who are not able to hear with their ears, they're still, quote unquote, listening or experiencing in a way. They're feeling it, they're sensing it with their other senses. So it seems to be deeply ingrained in us as people that we need it almost. If we don't have it, there's something that we're missing out on. And I think that but also I would say, I mean, I'm just going off on a tangent here, but
please.
Animals,
I do it all the time.
Animals and plants also respond to music.
Right.
So I think all of us on what, in nature on some level. And I mean, we can even get into this whole more the cosmic conversation about the music of the spheres, that even the cosmos is reverberating at a musical frequency.
Is.
So it's like hardwired, as you said. Hardwired is a blueprint of our essence of who we are. So I'm not surprised.
To that point, I mean, we're finding. I was watching a lecture by Richard Feynman, a physicist, and he said that and this is not new. This is from 20 years ago. The deeper you plunge into subatomic particles, we're not finding yet smaller particles. What we find is vibrations.
Oh, yeah.
So it's as if the universe is made of vibrational fields. And I think that, so there's a lot of levels to take that. You had mentioned, and as I had written, that music is a portal.
Yeah. So
when you hear music, it puts you it enters you into a liminal space.
Yeah.
You enter into a dream state. Now that dream state is a huge spectrum. So how far do you want to go with that? You can have the most kind of conservative thinking person who doesn't think about these things at all, and sort of avoids their imagination on some level, and no judgment, but gets into their Lexus and puts on Journey and has their Rolex watch, and yet when they're listening to music, they're aloft on a reverie.
Yeah.
And where do you go? You transport. It's funny because music is very much associated with motion in the human body.
Yeah.
It feels like it's an extension of motion. It's invisible. Music is invisible, unless you see the instruments. But it gives us this kind of dreaming while awake quality. So I talked about, you mentioned the UFO. The way I look at the UFO is it's a spoken hub. So it's when we enter into music, gives us access to altered states. It puts us in an altered state. It can trigger an altered state. And in these altered states, things can happen. Now, that could be reversed true as well, that we can be put into an altered state by something we didn't intend. It just occurs. That could be you have a vision. People have encounters. They didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
They have an encounter with a being or with a UFO sighting. I've talked to tons of people, mostly scientists, largely, actually, in UFO symphonic, people that, practiced empirical methods and were flummoxed at an experience that you couldn't foot rationally. So I think music deliteralizes. It puts us into this place where, because words anchor us. They concretize experience, I think. Even poetry takes us out of this strict concrete into something a little bit, it's also metered, I will arise and go now and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there of clay and wattles made, 9-bean rows. So I'm already, it's like I'm enchanting. I'm enchanted. I'm beginning to, there's this sacred space being called out. And when you add music to it, it adds shade and color. You had made mention, I realize I'm going all over the place here, but why the heck not? You made mention of their bones found 40,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago. So animal bones being used to drone, to make like kind of fluting sounds or droning sounds. And, if you can imagine being in a cave or in an enclosed space and, in the darkness, in this, with ritual chanting and sacred words, where that would put you, that would trigger you, that would put you into an altered state where, again, things happen. You're inviting experience. And whatever that is very hard to say. I am often the lab rat in my own experiments. And so I go to sound bath. I'm the guy doing it. I go to the Wachuma ceremony where we consumed San Pedro, which is an alkaloid like peyote. I did with my wife. And, other experiences. I put myself in those situations. And you make contact, and I think, and I'm very careful to say, well, what is that contact with? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Yeah. I feel there's an ecology. I call it an ecology of being. I told Joshua Cutchin, I took it, that phrase ecology of souls comes from Terence McKenna, and then he used it for his book, Ecology of Souls, Joshua. And I used the phrase ecology of being.
Yeah, interesting.
And I do think there's this contact you make. Are they emanations of you? Are they others? Are we all the same? Is kind of, and I'm not clear on that. I don't make any absolute statement, but I've had experiences where I did a sound bath where you go into this. It's kind of like a meditation center, and they're using bowls and chimes, and you can't but help this. The sound washes over you, and you go into like a hypnagogic state. And I remember hearing this kind of, I called her estrega, which means witch, right? is kind of like my grandmother, but it was also maybe me. And I'm thinking to myself, is this what you do? You go into a meditation place and you argue with yourself. There's this being that's kind of, and it doesn't matter if that being is independent. I think there's something, it could be both.
Mm-hmm.
It could be independent and some aspect of us, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that contact. And you had asked me something about how does this connect to, say, the UFO phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no one way. There's no absolute one thing. Sometimes music, what I've in talking to people, sometimes they have an encounter experience where music emerges out of that. It becomes this symphonic, beautiful thing, these voices, angelic voices. Doesn't always happen. Some people have they call it the Oz effect. So it's this like magical thing that's the space. They know it's different. It's charged, but it's silent. It's a thick silence.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes music can take you. So now here's the reverse. Music can take you into an altered state. So there's no one way. And certainly if you're consuming a sacred plant, you're going to go on a deep magic carpet ride with all of that into something very special.
Yeah.
But it's overlooked, isn't it, Stephanie, though? It feels like music is, we don't, it's like as if we take it for granted.
Yeah, we don't pay attention to it for some reason.
Right.
It's kind of this, this thing that's considered, I don't know, like an extra, as if it's not the foundation of, I would say music is more foundational than just something that we're doing extra for. As I said before, it's not just our entertainment. This is something much deeper than all of that. And hopefully we can get into more about this, this idea of consciousness and universality and things like that later in our discussion. Yeah. Right now, I'd like to ask you if you could talk a little bit more about your tarot cards, because I thought this was great. You use tarot in the writing of your book, and I was just hoping that you could talk a little bit more about how, why, what came out of it.
Right. Well, it's so part of the why is, so in some of the musicians, they explore, so Brian Eno uses aleatoric methods. So you sort of set something up composition wise, and he uses machines. And then, but chance things occur. And so it's like using the I Ching, allowing chance to factor into your creative process, or using the tarot, picking a card and allowing that to plumb your unconscious to explore associations. So I did it randomly. I used the weight deck for this. But I kind of made a mistake. Yeah, there you go.
I have my cards ready for you.
You got it. You got it right there. And I had the weight deck, and I shuffled the cards, but I did make a mistake, and I'll talk about that for a moment. So I wanted to associate, and I didn't want it to be too ham-handed. I wanted it to be lightly associations and have some kind of, in a way, literary and archetypal kind of connection to the composer and how it's affecting me and my perception of it. That was really that was the why, and the how is I just chose a card randomly and said, okay, Sun Ra, put the card down.
Ta-da!
Yeah,
He's a magician.
Exactly. Yeah. So now when you think of Sun Ra, and I realize to the folks listening, not everyone may know who he is. He was a jazz musician, innovative jazz musician, born about 1914 in Birmingham, Alabama, and the deeply racist, circumstance of Alabama at that time. As anyone go pick up a history book and take a look. And he was incredibly, he was a polymath, a very smart and talented person. and just excelled at learning and absorbing. A syncretic thinker. Was reading Egyptology and books on popular mechanics, which he used titles from popular mechanics for his songs sometimes. Very much interested in theosophy, in science, studied music, eventually studied music. Eventually he did transcriptions for Fletcher Henderson. Without going too much into that, another early jazz musician, was hugely famous in Chicago. And was Fletcher Henderson he created the arrangements for a big band that Duke Ellington, Benny Goodman, and all of the greats used going forward. It kind of separated out the instruments so it didn't sound like all kind of clumped together. So Sun Ra would go to Fletcher Henderson's shows and just write the music down, which is incredibly talented. But he was also playful. Sun Ra was very playful, and if you take a look at the Marseille deck or the weight deck, you see he has objects in front of him that he's playing with. He has this scepter. In the Marseille deck, he has a table, and he has these objects, these technological objects. Now, Sun Ra used a lot of, which was different for jazz. He used the Moog synthesizer, the clavioline, the celesta, which was breaking with tradition. He incorporated different rhythms in his style. There's a kind of music called, it's from Bali, gamelan, and it's sort of percussive and continuous, this percussive, continuous sound, not rhythmic like jazz would be, more uniform, very dense rhythm. I would say, just to people listening, go check it out. And playful. So Sun Ra he was playing with, I would say, social criticism, and he used a lot of double entendre. So like the magician, a technical wizard, also kind of card trickster.
Yeah.
Do card tricks before your eyes. They asked him, said, he would say things like, some people call me Mr. Ra. Some people call me Mr. E. Well, what does your mother call you? Well, she just calls me son. And he had all these clever double entendre for saying things to shine a light on the racism in America and, of course, around the world. But what was incredible is I chose that card for Sun Ra.
Isn't that is great. I think that is wonderful that trickster element that the magician card also carries. And I mean, I'm just looking here at my notes where I wrote down, how Sun Ra was asking people to abandon their rigid logic, enter mythic spaces where liberation could be possible. I mean, I didn't really know that much about Sun Ra, so thank you for introducing me to him. But I went to look up some stuff on YouTube, found all these different films that were made about him talking. I thought it was super interesting, but also to hear his music. And he was talking about how he did not identify as human. He thought he was from Saturn, and that he was talking about the cosmos, and he was talking about all these different principles about how music plays into all of that. He has something practiced something called tone science. Can you talk a little bit about that? What that is?
Yeah, it's like tone science. He was told when he wasn't abducted. He said that he was visited. He was chosen by beings. Not that you said abducted, just that he was very particular about that language. Yeah. That he was chosen by beings to make music to bring harmony to the people of Earth. And so in this tone science, it was this way of aligning and creating this harmonious. Now, it's interesting because when you listen to Sun Ra, he could be very dissonant. He could be very hard to listen to. And part of, I think, he would say that he was trying to knock people out of their somnambulance. It's so different from Eno, who's the moon card and kind of drawing you from darker spaces, and the moon gets its light from the sun. It doesn't have its own light, and inviting you into these dark niches of sound and these quiet kind of empty places that you discover. Whereas Ra was kind of throwing the kitchen sink at you, really clanging you with the noises, and he could also be very traditional too. But his idea, he said he was never born. He said, I'm eternal. Yeah. I was never born. And when you think about it, there's always that clever wrapping of ideas, and that we come from the earth, and that all I am is my body is made up of food, that I've eaten from, was nourished by the rain and from the earth itself, and from the dirt and the clay of the earth, and all of my atoms came from a star that exploded, etc. So he's got these cosmic notions, and he said that he was these beings. What was the word? Transmolecularized. They transmolecularized him. Mm-hmm. And in a way, what he was saying is that here, in Jim Crow South, Ra reconstituted himself, whatever the means, whether it was beings or it was him or however. I'm not interested in that. He recreated himself he recreated an identity, his own identity, a new identity. And he talks about the blackness of space. And in a way, he's sort of this rich, deep, infinite black space, which has a racial, connotation there. Mm-hmm. And when you think about it, the music that has conquered this country, it has African American and African origins. I mean, we in the world in general, whether we look at jazz or blues or rock and roll or hip hop, that music has it's kind of gotten to the heart and soul of people. So Sun Ra, incredible. I mean, you could just focus. I could have just written about Sun Ra. Right. The reason I chose, I could have. But the reason I chose these composers, musicians, was they were all interested in using sound to create altered states. They were all using music to kind of project this futuristic vision, this kind of technological vision. So I talk about then Pink Floyd, and here's where I made the mistake with the cards. I think I had the Ace of Pentacles. I just wanted to draw from the Major Arcana. Right. and I kept. I think I did it twice because I said, "Oh shoot, I can't." No, I want the Major Arcana.
This is the minor.
And then I pulled it again.
Yeah.
And when you think about with Pink Floyd, and these were popular. I do talk about other musicians where I kind of tuck it in. I did want to talk about popular musicians and composer musicians that I listened to. I mean, I wanted it to be genuine. Yeah. When I was 16, I didn't know who Pauline Oliveros was, or Suzanne Ciani, or the list goes on of amazing composers that I didn't talk about. But Pink Floyd, so Syd Barrett and the Floyd were, I would say that it's probably not super well known, but they were highly experimental in their approach of music, using new technologies, giving homage to Sun Ra, by the way. So Syd Barrett gave homage to Sun Ra and said that he was very influential in his approach. Using musique concrète, so recording something and then modifying that and then making that a part of your musical. Think of the sound of the clock in time, taking a clock sound and then now modifying it. But in myriad ways, in ways you probably won't even notice, capturing the rain or recording the sound of bees or insects in one song in particular. But Syd Barrett, who was kind of this good-looking, very creative, captivating performer, and his personality on the early Pink Floyd is very significant. With his success, when we're reaching for these things, when we're reaching into outer spaces and deep into inner spaces, as above, so below, the deeper we go inside, the farther out we go. There's caution. We should have caution. We should be respectful. We should, and this is not to proselytize, but when we're playing with these spaces, I think Syd Barrett became, I think he got burned by his fame and his creativity and his reach. And that's what the Ace of Pentacles, this notion of riches and of
material wealth. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
We have to, and I make a big point of talking about, talking about the yogic practices of when we're in a practice to not take great leaps and bounds, to do these by stages and to use guides, and use caution.
Yeah, of course. I think that maybe if you would kind of tie in to this as well, I think you were talking more about yes in the context. Let me look up the page. It was on 84. I think you're talking more about yes. Yes, you're talking about progressive rock. Yeah. Because first you start talking about psychedelic rock, and then you're like, well, progressive rock comes out of this. And yes is, a good example of a progressive rock band, and you equate the world card, the cycle of life, the end stage with this. But you are also talking about Rudolf Steiner and his ideas about what happens to people when they listen to music. So what I'm the way I was looking at it while I was reading what you were talking about, Pink Floyd, and then how this is progressing from found sounds, the musique concrète, into the, with using the, what is it called in my notes here? I have it written down. The azimuth coordinator that made all of these wild sounds. And then we're moving into this more progressive, type of rock and roll that you also say, just checking here in my notes so I don't misquote you. Progressive rock tended to focus on the obscure and the occult or hidden knowledge. So this world card that you picked, which I thought was so fitting, is seen from the aspect of eternity in the ever-present now. So this is the cycle, the ending and the beginning, things that happen. So maybe if you could talk a little bit about Rudolf Steiner and how he thinks music or thought music affects people.
Sure, and talk about the world card for a minute.
Sure.
And I'll get to Rudolf Steiner.
Yeah.
Steiner. So that if you look at their album covers, you often have these like green kind of landscapes, this very earthly landscapes, and there's a lot of earthly music in their composition. You'll have almost like Renaissance sometimes, British, kind of John Dolan type of music, and with a mandolin, and again it comes back to this notion, as above, so below. So while they're projecting this futuristic, progressive sound with electronics, there's also this very terrestrial feel, and that was important. In their music, there is this push towards kind of acknowledgement of remembering the earth and remembering the preciousness. And this is a theme throughout the music. Is we're not just doing it just for giggles only. There's that too, as I laughed during Pauline Oliveras' performance. But it has ideally it has a higher intentional aspect to it. What's interesting is that I found out in an interview with John Anderson that he wanted to name World. So how magical is that? It's just you're just stumbling on these things like, oh my gosh. Now with Steiner, so in the theosophists felt that there was this important notion that music happens on a different plane. It's invisible, but it still infuses, it moves through us. But the vibrational power of music, and I think you made reference to something, it sort of softens us. This rigid sense of boundary of self, this rigid sense of who my beliefs, let's just say. And music has that, or my state of mind even, has this ability to soften that up and to take me out of my ego so that I have a little distance, on this tightly bound ego and my sense of what the world is, my worldview. And maybe even when I went to Pauline Oliveras and I went to see some Hindustani classical music, and man, I had these emotions and about my son and his state of mind, and like there's this transportive feeling. And I came home and telling him, why don't we do more things you want to do, or let's take a cooking class together or something. I had this revelation. Mm-hmm. But I think it's powerful. We talked about vibrations. So this idea that that sound has the ability to completely transform reality. And one indication of this, and I realize I'm sort of stretching a little here. In the book, in the preface to the book, I make reference to Harry Smith. Harry Smith was actually a lot like Sun Ra, a polymath, filmmaker. He was a collector of music, artist, all around syncretic thinker, very influential to the beat generation. Was a friend of Allen Ginsberg. Was in that whole coterie of people. Here's why it's important. Harry Smith created this anthology of American folk music, and it was for the Smithsonian Folkways. The way he puts it together is very much an alchemical, this process of alchemy. He's making this magic potion that has transformative qualities, capabilities. And even their illustrations, like a disembodied hand, he was an artist. He has references to Robert Flood, to Aleister Crowley. And he took these musics, which were rural music from regional parts of America. They were performed by basically people who were left out. White people, black people. Sometimes the race is obscured, which is interesting because music was very racially labeled and distributed and sold to. Mm-hmm. This album, and they weren't the best versions of the songs, but he felt that they represented the region. Mm-hmm. They represented this rural kind of quality. These vibrations, these sounds, these noises would go on to be listened to people like Joan Baez and Bob Dylan and that whole generation. Mm-hmm. When Harry Smith won the Grammy for Lifetime Achievement in something like 96 or something, he said, "My dreams came true. I saw America changed through music." So putting together these vibrations, these sounds, there's no doubt that music transformed the country, transformed the world.
Mm, yeah.
So Steiner and the Theosophists, and it was in the kind of waters, and a little bit some of it comes from the notion of, say, early radio. And where is this thing, this electromagnetic spectrum? It sort of suffuses us, moves through us, but it has this powerful transformative quality, and it's on a different plane that, while suffuses through us and moves through us, it's separate from us. It's what's the word? Orthogonal. It moves through us, but it's sort of, how do I get to it? How do I get to music? Where is music? Yeah. It's almost like swimming. It has this ocean quality.
Yeah.
But to your point, this idea of vibrations, And I talk about Stephen Halpern, who was an early a pioneer of New Age music, much derided New Age music, but using frequencies like 463 hertz, 443 hertz, these different frequencies that have a healing effect. I urge anyone, just go and put on Stephen Halpern's music, listen to it. Is your state of mind affected? I think you will be.
It is. I did it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of drone music you could equate to that. You think of like the droning music of Hindustani, the sarod, or the tempura, or the sitar, or the didgeridoo, or the bagpipe, or the chanting, singing of Gregorian chants, or Renaissance music. You go throughout the different cultures, and kind of where we started, how music has this quality. They're all different, but they're doing something to induce a state, to bring you in, to communicate. Music, it connects us. Just brings us together.
Oh, yes. If I might read a little quote from page 84 from your book, you say, in essence, to experience music is to reconnect with one's spiritual origin. Music reflects the soul's true home, evoking a deep recognition. This is why pretty much anyone can be deeply moved by it. In those moments of elevation, the listener feels a profound truth. Yes, I come from another world, and in music, I remember it. I thought that was such a profound statement because, how often are you listening to something and it's like, I know this. I am resonating with this so much that words, it just has no effect anymore. You can't even put it into a sense of, linguistics or anything. That all falls away. It's just the sense of being, and you're connecting with that. It's wonderful.
There's a phrase. That was a great thing to read from. There's a phrase: writing about music is like dancing about architecture. It's basically, okay, good luck, have at it. But yet and like you noted that. And I'm writing about, so I took a look, because frankly, I forget what the heck I read about sometimes. I was talking about my friend and I, who we were kids, we're younger kids, we're listening to music, and really we're having a high level experience of the music. We don't have words for it. We're just two bozos listening to music, but deeply interested in this stuff, and without having the sophistication, having the experience. And going back to even just the notion of pentatonic, things that are simple, that just kind of work. Isn't it funny how the simplest things we remember, bum 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 bum. You remember simple things. Lullaby and good night, la 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 la. The most palpable music. Now, when you get to avant-garde music, that all changes, right? But the most palpable music is often the simplest, and it's not even a lot of notes. It's the Beatles. Their songs are so singable and so memorable. I used to belong to an improv group, and we would end with music. And the idea was, and you would make up the song and the melody. So you'd say, give me a phrase about whatever. They'd give you a phrase, you'd make a song of it. The trick was not to be complicated. The trick was to take something simple and make it so that they could repeat it back.
Yes.
And then
call and response.
Right. And everyone left the theater like feeling happy. The sun was shining. I looked outside. It's not night, I feel alive. The sun was shining. It's not night. Just made it up.
Yeah.
And everyone left the theater in this like joyful way, and then you would even have that echo in your ear. But it is that notion of connecting, that the way music connects us, sometimes not for great things. I mean, think of military or for rallies. Music can be used to rile, and certainly scientists say that, paleoanthropologists say that we had the anatomy to sing before we could speak. And when did we use these skills? We used them when a predator was nearby.
Yeah.
Use them for courting. Right? What does that sound like? It sounds like a bird. That's what birds do. They parp when the predator is near. The parping gets more rapid as they approach.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know why birds sing? Just for the sheer delight of being alive. Just like we do.
I find that really interesting, that the ability to sing came before the ability to speak. I think that's really, really profound.
I think that says a lot about just the layer, how deep music goes inside you, in parts of your brain. What do they call it? The R complex goes way. It's not wrapped up just in neocortex.
No.
It's the
older.
deepest part of who we are.
Yeah.
And I allude to, and I hate to get so scientific, to have these like notes of quantum mechanics and so on, but when you get down to it, it's all vibration. So how could that not be a part of this phenomena?
Makes sense. You've mentioned Pauline Oliveros now several times, and I do want to talk about it, and I want to be respectful of your time because we only have an hour to talk. So in the epilogue of your book, you discuss Pauline and the practice of deep listening. Now, for me, this was a new concept. I mean, I think you mentioned it in UFO Symphonic, but you talk again about it here, and that you say it's not just hearing things, it's a meditative practice. And it treats the entire environment as a musical composition. And it so and what it ends up then doing is like you're blurring the line between you and the outside of you. So it's all kind of, you're all immersive, and it's all this inner experience. And I just wanted to share this with you because I thought this was so much fun, the whole tarot thing. So in keeping with tarot and themes, I'd like to add the High Priestess to this group, if I may. Because the High Priestess is about secrets, it's about silence, and it's about wisdom. So as the magician, where we have my magician here, magician is active force. High Priestess is the receptive one. So I'm hoping maybe you could talk a little bit more about the practice of deep listening and how this might act as a portal, and as to get back to the blurb on the back of your book, a portal to this hidden knowledge, because the High Priestess is that keeper of the knowledge and the secrets and the wisdom.
That's an excellent point, and I think a miss on my part.
No, not at all.
To not crown.
I just thought it was fun. I thought it was fun. That's to add to your discussion, if you didn't mind. I hope you don't mind.
No, I love it. I love it. The idea of deep listening. So she felt it was a spiritual practice, and it was a bit of a meditation practice, and it had a lot of purposes. First of all, let's just listen to each other. So we hear with our ears, but you listen with your whole being, really, not just in your body. So there are deaf people that do deep listening, and she worked with groups. Let me give you an example of, and she has many practices that you could do. So this is called window piece. Face a closed window. Pick up as much sound through it as you can. Then open it inch by inch. Note how the sounds become more apparent, and in what order they arrive. Once the window is fully open, collapse the order and hear everything together. Her, I connect what she was doing, Pauline Oliveros, with active imagination. So where you're now engaging, you're engaging your imagination to trigger experience. I found actually people who were interested in deep listening too, and who do. I met this guy. This is an interesting story. I'm walking through a local grocery store here, and as I'm walking through the refrigeration, there's an aisle with refrigeration, mm-hmm. and there's somebody he has some kind of machine, and I say, oh, okay, he's fixing the refrigeration, and I say, I'm sorry, I can wait. And he goes, no, please go through, pass through me. Mm-hmm. So then I turn around, I say, what are you doing, by the way? Right? So curious, being open, listening, paying attention. Yeah. He was recording the refrigeration, right? Then we talked, I said, listen, I've read about this stuff. Can we discuss this? Can we meet? We exchange information. He records the refrigeration, Stephanie, and then he records found sounds like that, like dripping water, like trains moving. Mm-hmm. And then he has a degree in composition from the Berklee College of Music, and he creates composition from these sounds. And I said, well, why do you do this? And he said, to meditate. I listen to these and meditate. And I listened to one thing he created, and it was, you're down at this, like the microscopic level of sound, where it could have, I don't even remember what it was, but you're hearing the like whoosh, the slow ebb of a thing that you can't recognize from its original source. As if there are these worlds, there are these hidden depths, right? That are there, and we're just not paying attention. And deep listening helps us to bridge that, helps us to connect with those things, helps us to be more awake, more perceptive, more perceiving, because we're typically just going about our everyday, bumbling through it, and not only not listening to the world around us, not listening to each other. Think of the state of the world at this moment. We're just not listening to each other. So I think Pauline Oliveros' ideas right now they're urgent. We need to listen to each other and to the world around us.
If you don't mind me adding one little extra thing before we get into our closing little segment. You mentioned the mundus imaginalis and the imaginal realm. And I am, if anybody knows me and what I do, they know that I am really interested in the mundus imaginalis. And I think that Pauline Oliveros, as you wrote in the book, I don't have the, maybe I do, 133, maybe it's on this page. Yes.
I always have to look myself.
It's, you're right. Deep listen. Oh, this is her description of deep listening, taken from her website. Deep listening is exploring the relationships among any and all sounds, whether natural or technological, intended or unintended, real, remembered, or imaginary. And that jumped out at me because the imaginal is this in-between world. We're in the liminal again. It's between the physical world and the spiritual world, and it's this real ontological place. In the if you get into the theory of the mundus imaginalis and what that is. And without going into laboring on and on about it, I'm thinking that maybe this deep listening is also tapping into that as well, that you're attuning yourself to this liminal space as well, not just what's happening in the physical world and around you and you hear on the street, but going past that as well, and that meditative state that you're reaching, that you're getting into that imaginal state. And I know that might sound really abstract and like, what are you talking about, Stephanie? But I think that people probably have experienced it. I think I've experienced it. I know you've experienced it. But at times when you are in that moment where you're kind of outside of just, your mundane everyday world, and you're reaching this other state, whether it be through listening to music or meditating or deep in contemplative mood, looking at the ocean or following the clouds in the sky, or something that you're tapping into that other place, because you're kind of moving past just the physical. You're moving past that into this other place. And I thought that was so interesting that the deep listening also includes that, the imaginary, the imaginal. So I'm very, very interested to look more into that. I would also urge people to look into that themselves. And also, you talk about it in your book too, so read the book. Yeah. Do you have time for one little anecdote that you could share?
I'd like to talk about that for just a moment.
Sure.
If, the idea of the imaginal, I think, is, for instance, dreams. So, or let's take that strega that, I feel that's real.
Yeah.
It's there, it's hidden, it's sort of tucked away. But certainly every night we go to sleep and you plunge into this imaginal world.
Yeah, of course.
I think those things, like Jung said it very funny. He said I don't know how to say it exactly, but he said something like, what you imagine is real, basically. He said, it is real. These are real things when you imagine. And now people might say, well, that sounds crazy, right? Okay. Everything around you is something someone imagined, and it's real. This lamp is something someone imagined. This computer, this book that I wrote, this cup, everything. And it's almost like you can imagine something into being. That's magic. There are these notions of the tulpa.
Yeah.
So you can sort of create a being, and that gets very deep. So I think the imaginal is highly powerful, and we maybe disregard it, maybe because it is so powerful. I like the idea. So Aldous Huxley had this notion of the reducing valve, and that, in our everyday lives, we have to, I can't be on this call with you if I don't have a reducing valve and I can focus as much as I slip and move around all over the place, which is a fun thing to do, to have no plan in a conversation. I just love that. But the reducing valve shuts out all of the other things that are around us that are potential. And so there's a reason for that. So to be functional and to be, however, and it's not for everyone, because not everyone, because of circumstances in life and whatever the situation might be, there is this opportunity to find more, to investigate, to explore more, to have more experience, if you are so gifted with that opportunity. And that could be through many different ways. Deep listening. I write my dreams down. When I read my dreams, I realize I didn't write them. These aren't my dreams. These are folk tales from the human experience. They're not my things. Because I read them and say, wow, this is really great, but this is something I didn't write. There's this imaginal deep world, and what I'm trying to do here is, through music, my love of music, my deep study and interest, is to invite people to listen, to explore. And I realize it's not for everyone. Not every music is for everyone. Not everything is for everyone. But if you want to join me, come on the journey. And it is a journey. And that's what I would like to leave people with. This book is an invitation to a journey, and to my absolute deep passion and love for music and arts in general. Someone asked me, Stephanie, why didn't you include other arts in this book? And I said, because I didn't want to write a 500-page tome.
Yes.
I can talk about music, and I have like many books on music, going back to my first books. I have a playlist, by the way, that I'll share with you. It's an Apple playlist for the Innerspace of Outerspace.
Oh, yes.
So I put together, it's way more than what I talk about in the book, because, it's a playlist.
Yeah.
So it's, and that's what I would hope to bring to people. And when you said, or other people say, well, I went and listened to Sun Ra, I feel like mission accomplished, So that's there's more coming. As you know, there's another book coming out. Actually, I don't have a contract for it or anything yet, but
you're writing it anyway.
Yeah. Well, I feel it'll make its way into the world through imagining it.
Wonderful. Yes, you talk about Sun Ra. You talked about Stephen Halpern. I went and listened to his music as well. Actually, I think I had already listened to some of his stuff with the binaural beats, and I just didn't make the connection between the name in the past. Of course, Pink Floyd. Love Pink Floyd. Yes, Brian Eno. Actually, I'd been getting into Brian Eno in the past couple of years and his ambient stuff. So when you were talking about it, I was like, oh, that album that I listened to that had the Ascent, an ending on the, I think it was from Apollo, I believe the album.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There's a track on there called An Ascent. Or Ascent and Ending, I think is what it is in parentheses. Anyway, doesn't matter. I'm getting off on a tangent. I just really, really connected with this book because the way you were talking about the musicians, how they're approaching their work, how this is all interconnected with esoteric thought and the deeper, meanings of the metaphysical aspects. And also, sadly, we couldn't get into all of the UFO experience or narratives as well, but how music is also so deeply intertwined in so many of those experiences as well. I think that this book it has a little bit of everything for anybody. I mean, it's, read the book. It's really, really, really insightful, poignant, just lovely. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for writing it.
Thank you. Thank you for reading it. For a little book, it casts a big net.
It does.
It really tries to. But I appreciate that I discovered your podcast through and I don't remember who it was, but someone talking about music. So that's our connection, Stephanie, is music.
Oh, was it through or was it Phil Lagarde? That he wrote the thesis? Because I noticed in your footnotes that you had some Phil Lagarde references. Maybe it was Phil Lagarde because he wrote he wrote his thesis about music in the sense of occulture and music, but he also used a lot of found sounds and musique concrète. That's probably what it was.
Yeah, probably, and it's years ago now, so
yeah, that was a few years ago.
Yesterday.
Yeah, no, but I'm so happy that we connected with each other in that way, because it is I think it's an overlooked area, especially within my area of esotericism. Talking about it on different levels. Of course, music has such significance for a lot of different things, but in this particular aspect, I think it's a little bit overlooked perhaps.
Right.
So
you could use more footprint.
Totally.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're along that trail with me. So
thank you.
I appreciate my fellow comrade, playing the trumpet with me.
Thank you so much, Mike. I really had fun talking with you about this, and good luck to you with your new book. And also with this one, may you have a lot of people engaging with you on this book as well. Thank you so much.
As always, thank you so much, Stephanie. Great to chat, and we'll be in touch.
Yes, we will. Definitely. Take care.